Obviously, we all know what we're going to talk about pretty much most of the show. And Ronnie, you and I were talking right before we came on. Nowhere in the world did I think I would be starting with the news I'm going to be starting with. On a day that LSU basketball gets a 6th seed in the Midwest region, right? They're going to play Iowa State. On a day that LSU women's hoops gets a 3 seed in the Spokane region. On a day that LSU softball wins a series against number 2 Alabama, who coming into Tiger Park had not lost a game. On a day that the New Orleans Saints, reportedly make an offer for Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. And on a day that quarterback Tom Brady unretires after only 40 days.
And the Baton Rouge Rougarou.
And the Baton Rouge Rougarou. And the Baton Rouge Rougarou's got new ownership. We'll tell you all about that here coming up in a little bit. With all those things coming on, it's like a sports radio paradise. Mm-hmm. You've got all those things. You don't normally it's like guest. Oh, we'll worry about that later. We'll figure some things out. Whatever. The show writes itself. But that's not what we're talking about. Obviously, we're talking about LSU moving on from their head basketball coach, Will Wade. And as most of you listening to this already know, Will Wade in total gets 5 level 1 violations: obstructing an investigation by concealing evidence, unethical conduct, cheating, was planned, schemed, and purposeful, according to the notice of allegations. And so by now it's Monday. It happened Saturday. You know most of the details. And look, we'll still cover those details, but I want to go around the room, certainly to Ronnie and Mario, because obviously you'll have deep ties to LSU, and Mario, being the basketball fan that he is, initial thoughts whenever you heard that Will Wade was being let go.
Not surprised is my initial thought. I've been waiting for the shoe to drop for a few years now. And, when he came back in 2009, was it 19? It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's been that long. 2019, when he was suspended for the postseason. And then he came back to the program. Remember, he didn't cooperate with investigators, didn't meet with LSU's internal investigation, and that's what led to his suspension. And but when he came back, he forfeited a bonus, and he also redid his contract, which said any level 1 or level 2, would come his way, LSU's way, they could fire him for cause. So when that happened, when that was done, you've got to figure that LSU, that you knew this day was going to come at some point.
It did feel inevitable. But it's like, man, if this just keeps going down the road, with the way the NCAA, because
wow, if they haven't done anything by now, they might not have anything.
Hey, Ronnie, we're not naive. We know there was probably something that was going on.
We heard him on the tape. Okay, okay. Like that. We heard the whole world.
Yes,
heard him on the tape on the HBO documentary. That's it. Open and closed. Open and shut. I know we've got a lot of people in this town that are friends with him. He's a wonderful guy. Did a great job with the basketball program.
He's always been open to us. By the way, access was always open to us.
But at the same time, Jacob, we're not talking about a third assistant got busted at the Exxon station on airline.
Wait. Y'all might need to go check into some of that from
right. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the head coach on a tape for the whole world to hear. Yeah. But yet somehow for the last 4 years, people wanted to defend that this day may not happen. It just was bizarre to me. So the only thing that's surprising is that there was 2 things. One, it hadn't happened sooner.
Right.
And 2, there was in the letter or whatever about how they bribed people to keep their mouths shut
with a personal bank account.
Right. It's just how silly and how ridiculous. In the day and age of Venmo and cash apps and everything else, cryptos, give them Gamecoin. Whatever,
Yeah, and we'll get into all the notice of allegations and kind of what's in there, and as we mentioned, 5 level 1 violations, and obviously level 1 being the most severe there. Mario, I know over the weekend you and I were talking, and you definitely have some feelings about when you heard the news as well.
Yeah, like Ronnie said, it's inevitable. Will did this to himself. It was something that was 3 or 4 years in the making. All that being said, my initial thought is that I feel really bad for the team. Nobody on this particular team had nothing to do with anything as far as these allegations, and now they have to play the first round of the NCAA tournament without their head coach. That's a really, really tough spot to be in. Again, he needs to, face the music for what happens, for something that's been building for a really long time now. But my first thought is I feel really bad for the team.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. There's not one player on this team that is in these reports. I mean, these dealings were well before any of these players were on campus, and now they're going into an NCAA situation where it's not like, they're not a 10 seed, a 12 seed. Not that the seeding matters, but I mean, they're a 6 seed. I mean, they're a good basketball team. They're expected to play in the round of 32. And, Ronnie, I can't imagine kind of what their thought process, is right now. Like, it's not a situation where it's the end of the season and you're playing a bowl game and you're playing one game without your coach. I mean, this is like you're going into a tournament situation and you really don't know what the program's going to look like after the tournament's over. Like, there's a lot of players on this team that are going to have a decision. We're going to talk with Billy Embody, by the way, at 8 o'clock because obviously he covers LSU basketball recruiting. Like, what does this do to, like, these players' futures as well?
That's why I'm surprised they played so well the other day, in the first round in the SEC tournament against Missouri, where they played one of their best basketball games of the year, dominated from start to finish, because all this came out before. Now, the actual specifics of it we found out, after the fact, after Will Wade was fired. But they knew, these players and these families knew going into the SEC tournament that I better start looking elsewhere. LSU's going to, something's going to come down the pipe, whether it's a postseason ban, whether it's limitations on scholarships. I mean, it's not going to be good for LSU basketball. So, all these incoming recruits are going to go somewhere else, 90% of them. Some of the guys that are younger are going to transfer. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be like the Dale Brown, John Brady first couple years, where it's rough and you got to weather the storm and you got to hope you can get a couple guys to stick through it with NIL now, which is kind of the irony of the whole thing.
We talked about that on Friday.
So you can make a damn strong offer, with NIL now. But anyway, that said, I was surprised they played so well the other day, but I can't imagine, like right now, this week, I mean, what are you focusing on? You're having conversations with your family, parents, advisors, AAU coaches from back in the day, looking at options and weighing all your options this week and next week.
Kevin Nickelberry is going to be the interim coach. He's been a head coach at Hampton and Howard in his career, so he definitely has head coaching experience. He will lead the Tigers into the NCAA tournament. And real quick, before we kind of get into everything that was in the NOA, I want to talk about the timing of it. The timing of it, the day before Selection Sunday. Okay, so you've got all this momentum. You're going to be a 5 or 6 seed, maybe at worst a 7 seed, and then boom, the day before you find out who you're playing, where you're going to be playing, that's when all this news comes out. So obviously they got the notice of allegations, and once they found out what was in those allegations, they were going to make this move. Were you surprised that it wasn't like, okay, we've got this notice of allegations, we are going to vet this, we're going to do A, B, and C before we make a decision? Or are you like, okay, this is what they've been waiting for?
Well, I wondered because they have 3 weeks, LSU does, to respond from the initial time that they got the information last week. And when you go 3 weeks into the future, that would be right before the Final Four, the week before the Final Four. So and look, LSU's not expected to go to the Final Four. So I would have thought they would have played out the season, let them go, respond to the NCAA. To me, this is one of maybe a couple of things. Maybe LSU wouldn't have gotten a 6 seed had they not fired Will Wade. Maybe they'd have got a 7, 8, 9 seed. Maybe they'd have held it against them, the selection committee. And the fact that they got rid of him, the selection committee says, okay, we'll let you go at the 6 seed. The other thing is that, maybe LSU's getting out ahead of it also will help them on what comes down as far as what the sanctions are going to be at some point. And then the other thing on this deal is that behind the scenes, this is not Scott Woodward's hire. This was a Joe Oliva hire. I'm sure it's been maddening and frustrating for 4 years to not only have to deal with this divide with a coach who's not really being transparent with everything. And
you came in with already all this cloud around it.
And so I think there's probably some frustration and some wringing of the hands, and let's just move on. Let's just get rid of, Will and you Ken for cause without owing him any money, and let's move on. And I'm sure that's part of it too.
Yeah, we'll talk about the letter that the school put out here coming up. I know a lot of people, it's kind of been their main focus. In letters like that, I'll be honest with you, you can kind of almost tell what it's going to say before it comes out.
But I thought this was very transparent. The letter to me had a lot more juice in it than I expected. I was surprised at how transparent LSU was with the information in this letter.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll cover. Mario, again, man, Mario's kind of been all over this as well. What did you think of the timing of LSU moving from Will Wade the day before Selection Sunday?
Again, it's unfortunate for the team, but I agree with what Ronnie's saying. I think that might hold LSU in a little bit better favor with, number one, the selection committee giving them a better seed, and number two, the NCAA when they inevitably get all these sanctions. It's terrible for the team, but LSU is kind of doing what they needed to do and, trying to run a little bit of damage control before the hammer comes down.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm sure we all deal with it. Everybody in this room, it's you go around town and everybody knows what you do for a living, which is great. And then, the narrative changed from how's BK and the football team looking to, oh man, what's going on with the basketball program? That was like on Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday it started to change to when you're around town. Man, is the basketball team going to self-impose and not play in this tournament and try to get some favor with the NCAA? I can tell you, I never heard that from LSU. All the people I know over there, that was never anything, and I'm glad. I'll be honest with you. A lot of people are like, man, why didn't they just go ahead and take – because this team didn't deserve that. This team on the court, the players, they went out there and earned themselves a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. And so as a former player, and Ronnie, you can probably back this up as well, I'm excited that the players at least get a chance to go out there, and it's a tournament. Hell, we've seen a 7 seed. I'm not saying LSU is going to go win it all. I'm not saying they're going to make a Final Four. We've seen the 7 seed do it. UConn did it not that long ago. So the players that at least on the court earn the right to play in this tournament, be a 6 seed. I am glad that they get to play their career out.
Absolutely, and I never gave that any thought, to be honest with you, that they wouldn't play, because it would do more damage for the future. Imagine being a coach, whoever the next coach is, and which is going to be a tricky hire. Everybody thinks, Scott Woodward, who's a big game hunter, is going to go out and land some big fish. Well, let's wait. They're not going to know what what's going to come down the pipe for the NCAA as far as postseason bans or limitations or anything like that. So slow your hold your horses just a little bit there. But it would be a bad message to any future recruits or coaches if you wouldn't have played in this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned in the future, LSU is going to get some sanctions.
Right.
They're not walking away from this clean. I mean, we've seen Oklahoma State. I mean, they're on a postseason ban currently right now, and that's going to happen. Now how long? That's going to be the big question to what you're talking about. And again, we will talk about maybe who comes in and replaces Will Wade on in the show. One of the million things that we have to get to here this morning, is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? I mean, what's that number going to be? If it's 2 years, that changes what kind of coach I think you can get in here. If it's anything more than that, I think that changes what kind of coach you can get in here.
Can we let Kim Mulkey do both, boys and the girls?
Kim Mulkey can almost damn near do what she wants.
Look, I joked. Unfortunately, this is happening after Kim Mulkey's first year because, I mean, obviously she's not going to leave LSU's women's basketball for anything at this point in her career. But it would be fun. Let's just say hypothetically they hire a new coach. And it's going to be rough for LSU basketball the next couple of years. Let's just not kid ourselves. They're not going to win a lot of basketball games. If they do, it'd be like a movie. But 3-4 years from now, if things aren't going better and they make a change, Kim Mulkey's 4 or 5 years in, LSU women's hoops, probably won a national title by then. Maybe make her the first female Division I men's basketball coach at 64 years old or something like that. I'd love to see it.
We can talk about that later, but I can tell you the other day or a couple of weeks ago, I was walking out of the administration building and I heard Hester, and I knew who said it. And I was like, oh my God.
It just got your attention.
What did I do? What did I do? And I can tell you, playing for Nick Saban, he's one of the few people I've ever met, maybe the only person that had that kind of power.
Right.
Says your name and you're like, oh my God.
I saw her the other day at the LSU baseball game. She said, hey, there's the bandwagoner. There's the front runner. I only seen you at one game this year. I was like, I was at 2.
Ma'am, I got the ticket stubs in the car. I promise I'm going to get them.
I thought she saw me at the second. I went down to the terminal and waved to make sure she saw me. She didn't.
Oh, exactly. You went and hey, Kim, I'm here.
Right.
Hey, right here. Okay, we will take a first break. And like I said, I mean, we've got so much to get to. Trust me. Obviously, this is the story. Like, we're going to talk about Will Wade for majority, certainly of hour number 1. Wilson Alexander, the Advocate, is going to join us at 7:30. As I mentioned, Billy Embody is going to join us to talk about recruiting and where you go from here. You've got some great players signed up in this class. You're recruiting some more guys. You have players on your own roster, which we know you have to recruit those guys every single day, basically, in college athletics now. So what is the future of LSU basketball look like? What's the message going to be? We've got Ross Jackson, Lockdown Podcast, going to join us to talk about this Deshaun Watson stuff. Apparently the Saints and the Panthers have both made an offer to the Texans. He's going to have visits with them because, remember, he does have that no-trade clause. Tom Brady, apparently he's coming back. It was only a month. He's like, I'm going to go to Old Trafford, watch Ronaldo score a hat trick at 37. That's going to inspire me to come as a 45-year-old NFL quarterback. I mean, just so much to get to. We'll do it all and more when we come back off the bench.